The First Amendment right to freedom of speech encompasses one of America's most divisive and hotly debated subjects: the advocacy of violence for political purposes. Does the First Amendment protect politically motivated incitement to violence? Does it matter if the speaker's politics are motivated by hate? The United States Supreme Court considered these questions in Brandenburg v. Ohio. Clarence Brandenburg was a member of the Ku Klux Klan. He invited a reporter to attend and film a Ku Klux Klan meeting. During the meeting, Klan members brandished weapons and made derogatory remarks about African American and Jewish people. Brandenburg also said, "We're not a revengeant organization, but if our president, our Congress, our Supreme Court continues to suppress the white Caucasian race, it's possible that there might have to be some revengeance taken." After footage of this meeting aired on television, the state of Ohio charged Brandenburg with violating the Ohio Criminal Syndicalism Act. The act criminalized the advocacy of, quote, crime, sabotage, violence, or unlawful methods of terrorism as a means of accomplishing industrial or political reform, unquote. Brandenburg was convicted, and he appealed on the grounds that the act violated his First Amendment right to freedom of speech. The state appellate court affirmed his conviction, as did the Ohio Supreme Court. The United States Supreme Court granted cert. The issue before the court was whether the First Amendment prohibits a statute criminalizing the advocacy of violence or unlawful actions as a means of accomplishing a political agenda. In a per curiam opinion, the court held that the statute violated the First Amendment and that a state may not outlaw speech unless the speech is directed to inciting violence or lawless action, and the speech is imminently likely to do so. In so holding, the court departed from the traditional clear and present danger test originally established in Schenck v. United States. In Schenck, the court held that speech could be restricted if it created a clear and present danger of substantive evils that the government had a right to prevent. Under the Schenck test, the advocacy of violence for political purposes could be restricted whether or not the advocacy was likely to lead to concrete action. In contrast, the Brandenburg court distinguished between abstract advocacy of unlawful or violent action, which is generalized and nonspecific, and actual advocacy, which directs and prepares the audience to actually commit a specific unlawful act in the immediate future. Under the Brandenburg standard, speech that promotes the necessity of violence or lawless action vaguely, conditionally, or sometime in the distant future is protected. However, speech that directs and animates the listener to commit imminent violence or lawless action isn't protected. Applying this standard, the court struck down the act because it punished abstract advocacy of violence as a means of accomplishing political reform. For example, under the act, a person could be punished for the circulation of a book containing philosophical teachings or political theories. The act unconstitutionally prohibited advocacy that wasn't likely to incite imminent lawless action. Therefore, it didn't pass constitutional muster under the court's new standard. The court reversed the Ohio Supreme Court's ruling and overturned Brandenburg's conviction. Justice Douglas wrote a concurring opinion summarizing the World War I cases that shaped the clear and present danger test. According to Justice Douglas, the test had been distorted to such an extent that even frivolous threats would satisfy the test. For example, in Dennis v. United States, the court had reasoned that the advocacy of communism could be constitutionally restricted, despite the low probability that the advocacy would lead to successful revolutionary action against democracy. In Douglas's view, the seriousness of the threat should be measured by the actions taken to further the belief, rather than the nature of the belief itself. Brandenburg v. Ohio has had a lasting impact on First Amendment jurisprudence. By incorporating the element of imminence into the constitutional standard for incitement, the decision limited the government's power to restrict potentially dangerous political speech.